Good afternoon, everyone. After the inauguration, we are here to start with the first summit of the Trade Winds 2022, the Entrepreneurship Summit. We wish to discuss and anticipate the upcoming trends in the next 100 startups of India in a summit hosted by the ESET. India's startup landscape has evolved to become the third largest in the world after the US and China. And this robust ecosystem is the key to realizing India's dream of becoming a 5 trillion economy by 2025. During such dynamic times in our country, it is in times of uncertainty that innovative ideas are born. We plan on looking at some of the upcoming trends in the next 100 startups of India in the Entrepreneurship Summit hosted by ESET. Now, I would like to request the ESET to come up on stage and take it forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm more than grateful to stand here and welcome you all to TradeWinds, the flagship event of IIFT Delhi. I'm Aditi Kashyap, will walk you through the National Entrepreneurship Summit 2022, exploring the journeys of our esteemed guests over an interactive panel discussion, and then we'll also discuss about the upcoming trends the next 100. Well, entrepreneurship is much more than unicorns and decacons. It is not for the faint-hearted. It is a career consisting of multi-iterative endeavors which takes strenuous dedication, hard work, and a resilient attitude to keep bettering oneself continuously. Today, as part of National Entrepreneurship Summit, IIFT is extremely proud to host some of the esteemed entrepreneurs and like-minded professionals of India to be part of the panel discussion. And before going ahead, we would like to invite the panelists and the moderator for our annual magazine launch that provides an avenue for to develop entrepreneurship spirit among students and showcase their knowledge, opinions, and findings of the latest happenings in the startup world. I would like to invite panelists and moderator one by one. Mr. Aditya Goel, he'll be the moderator. Mr. Arman Singh. Ms. Achal Saini. Mr. Nikhil Inani. And guys, we know how Delhi traffic is. We'll soon be joining with us one more entrepreneur, Mr. Aditya Arora. So be patient and let's go ahead with the magazine launch. So I would like to give a brief introduction about our moderator and panelists. Our panel moderator for today is Mr. Aditya Goel, and an esteemed alumni of IIFT Delhi. Mr. Goel has had an exceptional professional experience career working at two of India's leading FMCG companies, RB and Godrej Consumer Products Limited, post his MBA. And he's also the co-founder of Love and Store in Account Me. And to give a brief about his entrepreneurial achievements, Love in Store is a multi-platform collaborative people plus tech plus AI services company currently servicing 30 leading FMCG and consumer companies. And he also specializes in giving speeches across different B schools. And we would like to thank you for moderating the session. Our second panelist, our first panelist will be Mr. Arman Sood, co-founder of Sleepy Owl Coffee. I hope everyone knows. Recognized by Forbes 30 under 30 class of 2020, member of Indian and the Asian diaspora. Mr. Sood, by education qualification, is a lawyer from Jindal Global Law School in 2015, and during his second year at his law school, he started an e-commerce startup up retailing bar, party, alcohol, accessories, which was his first entrepreneurial endeavor. And Sleepy Owl Coffee is one of the first brands to introduce premium cold brew coffee in India that personalizes to Indian consumers. We have our second panelist, Ms. Achal Saini. So she's the founder of Rented Bay and Flyro, India's first largest fashion retail company, which is now scaling both online and offline. Prior to this, she worked for 6+ years in the Delhi High Court Arbitration Center, wherein she was the founding member and general counsel of India's first institutional arbitration center, promoted by government and supported by the High Court. She's also enthusiastic about the happenings in technology, sustainability, and the startup ecosystem. We also have our third panelist, Mr. Mikhil Inani, who is the CEO of Apollo Finvest, a public listed NBFC and co-founder of PharmEasy, India's largest online medicine delivery e-commerce. He holds a master's degree in information systems from Carnegie Mellon University. He has 10+ years of work experience of building products from scratch to an unprecedented scale of 250+ million monthly active users. Now going ahead, I would like to, a good conversation can shift the direction of change forever, and we would like to proceed on with the panel discussion. It will be 5 minutes a speech introductory session by about each of your companies, and then we can and a brief about the theme, sub-theme, and then we can go ahead with the panel discussion.
All right, good to be here. Give you guys a quick introduction about myself.
So in my quick background is
2010. I completed my graduation from Mumbai University. Post that, I went on to do my master's from Eminent University, and really post that.
Why don't you take the
Okay.
All right.
Is this there? Okay. All right. So as I was saying, 2012, I started off my career, and really post that for the last 10+ years, I've been building digital companies in India. I started off my career with a tiny company called Coupon Dunia. I had the good fortune of having a founder there in the name of his name was Samir, and he trusted me to become the head of product and technology over there, having pretty much no experience at all. And that was a fantastic experience for me. Within a couple of years or so, that company ended up becoming acquired by Times Internet, and gave me invaluable experience in terms of how do you actually go about and build an amazing company and build an amazing team. I carried on that experience by when going on and starting my own company. So I started PharmEasy at that point in time. PharmEasy, of course, today is one of the largest online medicine delivery companies in India. That was a complete rocket ship. Went on to start that with a lot of people who were part of Coupon Dunia as well, and that really helped us. The working chemistry that we had was fantastic. Post that, I went on to be one of the early team members at Hotstar. So I was the first among the first 10, people in technology and product there. When I went in there, completely the technology was outsourced to Accenture. My job there was, to build it completely in-house. We had a great time doing that. We literally, broke Guinness World Records in terms of, number of live concurrent users on a video stream, thanks to obviously the passion in India for cricket. And the match also, ironically, the one beating the Guinness World Record was the India-Pakistan game. So fabulous times. That story, of course, had an actual fairy tale ending where the Mickey Mouse company Disney came in and acquired us. And post that, my entrepreneurial itch was back. I went on to start Apollo Finvest. Apollo Finvest today is a public listed NBFC. So we are listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange. So a little bit different than a normal startup. What we do in simple words is we enable any company to start offering digital loans to their end customers in 48 hours. So we work with about 20 plus fintechs today to enable them to offer digital loans to their end customers. The whole mission with Apollo Finvest is to enable financial inclusion in the country. About 90% of India doesn't have access to financial products of any sort, especially credit. And we believe like the only way to kind of conquer this is by basically following the path of digital lending. So that's what Apollo Finvest is all about. That's a quick summary about me. Of course, we'll be engaging in a panel discussion. So after that, if you guys have any questions, happy to answer that. Thank you.
Hi. So I studied law. I trained to be a lawyer. And with all honesty, entrepreneurship happened for me just because of the idea of rentals and not because I was looking to start up something. I passed out my college in 2009. So back then, it was very standard. You would do certain internships. But after year one of working, I understood that, to build myself as a lawyer, there are a few key skills that I have to master. And I identified how to do that. Like, for example, drafting is one thing that you need to learn. I wanted to understand how to appear in the Supreme Court, how probably consumer forums work, matrimonial was interest to me. So, to do all of those things, I started working pattern-wise. Year one was dedicated on certain development, skill development. Year two was something else. I was part of, fortunately, I was part of founding member, I was a founding member for the Delhi International Arbitration Center, which was India's first institutional arbitration center supported by the Delhi government and the High Court. So, organically there I learned a lot of skills as in how to set up an organization from scratch. We drafted the rules for the center before the center commenced. And then from there, from zero matters to about 10,000 matters, I worked with them for 6-7 years. Alongside, I took up, my father, fortunately, was also practicing law. So I took up a few cases with him, and then I understood Supreme Court, so I need to work with the Supreme Court lawyer, dedicated my 2 hours in the evening here or there. So ultimately, I feel that you need to identify these are the skills that I need to build in myself, whether you're whatever field you're in. And, by define a timeline, year one for this, year two, or whatever certain time frame. So that's how I started doing that. And my story wasn't like a boring corporate job looking for something else. I was really excited what I was doing and doing very well also. So first set of entrepreneurship came with, I was in fact backstage just discussing that we founded a company which was like a food technology startup. So as a lawyer, you get like a summer break. If you're a litigating lawyer, you have like 1.5 months of complete break. So people usually go for vacations, and there we built a food technology startup. And after that 1.5 months of scaling that to like what we tied up with 200 restaurants, I went back to my law and I thought that we would do this together, but this was learning number one, that you can't do two things. When you're starting something and something very new, you can't do two things at all. Immediately stopped it, went back to law. And then the renting idea came. And with all honesty, when I started, I was really, my approach was very, very narrow. The starting was, we feel that, women are mocked about, my closet is full, yet I have nothing to wear. So logically, everything in the closet has been worn once. So you don't have a new outfit to wear every time. So this was the real problem. And to solve that, we started with renting westerns and accessories. And of course, coupled technology so that we could scale and reach to masses and all that. Running that business for about 2 years, understood that two learnings. One, that the product takers, we were shoving a lot of money on our customer acquisition cost, which is again a sign. If that cost is not going down for you, it's a sign that the service is probably not needed that much. So we realized that West, very very less highly social people are there in the country who would need a new Western outfit every evening. Then pivoted to the ethnic market. The product was, of course, ethnic wear, which is a more rentable asset. It's an expensive product. You rent it X number of times. And the channel. We were completely online, and then we figured out India is yet a market where we like when we spend a lot of money in buying clothes, like wedding outfits, we would like to go to the store. We would like to physically touch and feel. And as it is, when you're breaking a concept, the idea was there are mom and pop stores available for renting products, but hygiene was an issue, quality of product was an issue. So when we're breaking that, so we need to really showcase the product to the user. So then we started to build stores. And after obviously this 4 or 5 years, we understood it's a complete omni-channel business. It has to be online for the people to understand what rental is, to make them aware about it, and then offline so that they can come and transact. So that's how the journey was. And of course, there was no precedent. Like, for example, I want to start selling clothes. So I'll go to Myntra. I'll just check out Myntra. I'll put my head, add more features, build a product which is better than Myntra. So for us that time, there was no precedent. There was nothing to look up to in India. Nobody was doing all this. So for us, it was completely like we had to do it and then understand, fail, and operationally also it's a very challenging business because it's not like selling. You don't sell and you get rid of the product. No, if the product comes back, then it has to be prepared for the next person. And during one season, one product is booked by multiple people. So of course, technology, dashboards, all of those things helped us. So journey has been quite nice. And now we see a lot of organic growth because I feel youngsters, they understand access is key. They want to experience things and they don't want to put a lot of money in investing in assets they will not use later. So happy to share my other things also and we're talking in the panel. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arman. I'm the co-founder at a company called Sleepy Owl Coffee. I grew up in Calcutta. How many of you all here are from Calcutta or from Bengal? Very nice. There are a bunch. Okay. So I grew up in Calcutta, middle class family. My parents were very encouraging when it comes to, me studying, the sports, extracurricular activities. So in my younger days, I wanted to play cricket for the country. Anyone here who wanted to become a sports person at some point in time? Yeah. Why are you all here? Probably the same reason. Either I don't think I worked hard enough. I couldn't convince my parents that there would be a career in this. So finally, in the 10th grade, when my cricket team was playing at Eden Gardens, I was preparing for my examinations and I wasn't allowed to go. So I gave up cricket and started playing football and hockey. Couldn't convince them that there was an opportunity there either. But in the 11th and 12th, I took PCMB, which is physics, chemistry, math, and bio. The idea was have all options open. Anyone here who has physics, chemistry, math, and bio? Yeah, why are you all here? Okay, so yeah, the idea was have all your options open. You could figure out and do whatever it takes, And then by the time I remember registering for the IIT, WB, JEE, and your AIEEE examinations, and when the time came, I convinced my parents that I don't want to go for any of those exams. And then they said, "What do you want to do?" And I think one of the extracurriculars that I really enjoyed was debating. So my parents were like, why don't we make him a lawyer? So I said, sure, it sounds interesting. So I spent that 1 month between boards and getting into law school, preparing for the CLAT and the LSAT examinations, and I enjoyed that studying in that period for a career in law. I read about a career in law, and it was exciting. It was very, very exciting. And I joined Jindal Law School in 2010. And I feel like everything that you do, let's say even in your 0 to 12th grade, right? It's ultimately you're building yourself up, like as a person, your skills, your interpersonal skills, your confidence, your ability to read, learn, consume information, right? So it wasn't challenging to switch from what I studied to even entering law school. The first 2 years of law school were great. I was very excited and I was studying really hard. And during this time, I also met my co-founder of Sleepy Owl and my best friend Ashwajit. And he sat me down and said, "Isme kuch nahi rakha." And those were his words. And he's like, there's such a big world out there. We have to build something. So I said, okay, let's take this opportunity. We are in law school. We have people around us. Let's sell something to them, right? So actually, the first business that we started together was Jindal was a new university at that time, and we had no, college merchandise. So we were inspired by, let's say, how most colleges have hoodies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, caps, etc. And we, sort of started that small business, churned a little profit each year that we did it, and we found it very, very exciting. So we said, okay, what are the other gaps in the market? What can we do? And we felt that partying in college without party accessories was quite boring. So we went online to Alibaba.com. How many of you have heard of Alibaba as a website? Yeah. Okay. So you guys are in IIFT, so I'm sure trade is a part of that. So we just went online. We started talking to suppliers on Skype, Chinese people in English on Skype, and we managed to import beer pong tables, beer bongs, whiskey stones, ice shot glasses, and a bunch of party accessories. And we set up our first e-commerce direct-to-consumer website in 2012. And it was a very exciting phase. So those 3 years, we sold, we were sitting in our dorm rooms and in our classes, getting POs and selling products to consumers online, to other businesses as well. It was a lot of fun. And we learned during those 3 years that this is what we're meant to do. We're meant to do business. We're meant to be entrepreneurs, and we can't pursue. I didn't do any internships. So another fun story is Ashwajit and I signed each other's internship certificates under our own company and submitted it. And we got a pushback saying that this is not allowed, and we're like, but it is a registered company, and like he's a director and I'm a director, and we signed each other's certificates, and they couldn't do much about it. Unfortunately, as I think Anshul mentioned, when you're doing something part-time, it's really difficult. So we were not fully, we were no jobs or Zuckerberg that our parents said, "Okay, law school chhod do." So we had to continue with our law school, had to maintain our attendance and our grades, and run a business on the side. And I'm talking 2012, like digital adoption was just not where it is today. So a couple of reasons that business didn't succeed. We had to wind it up by the time we graduated. And but what it taught us was that, I'm switching careers again. So I graduated law school, and I was lucky that there was, a family friend running an education technology startup in Bombay. And she said, you seem like someone who has hustle, essentially, and you're trying things and doing things. So why don't you come and sort of join the marketing and PR department of my edtech startup? So I moved to Bombay, did that for about 9 months. Ashwajit joined a fashion company called, I forget the name. He joined a fashion company and called Cora Jeans, and he was selling denim, salvage denim jeans. 3 months into his job, he called me and said, "Listen, I'm done here as well, and I want to start something, but I will only start with you." And I said, "Okay, but I've just landed a job. I'm in Bombay. I'm getting paid well. I'm enjoying my life. Like you kar raha hai mere saath." And he said, "No, I'll quit. I'll come to Bombay. I'll live with you, and we'll think of something to start." So I said, "Okay, you come. This is your risk. You don't come up with a good enough idea in 4 or 5 months, then you figure your thing out. I'm not quitting." But we spent day and night trying to say, okay, what are the problems in the world? What are the gaps? What do consumers want? Unlike Nikhil, didn't have the skills to build large digital businesses. So we said, yeah, wo to hai nahi humme. But consumer is exciting, right? Consumer packaged goods, consumer FMCG, that was exciting for us. And I'm a big foodie, love my beverages as well, coffee, alcohol, everything included. So we said F&B, FMCG is the area that we want to explore. So we didn't even have Sleepy Owl as an idea then. We were just distilling it down into what is our interest? What are the sectors that are exciting? What are the trends globally, right? And that's when we, looked at our own habits. Ashwajit was a French press coffee drinker. How many fella actually used a French press to make coffee? Yeah. Okay. Very few. Okay. I used to have coffee powder with milk and a mixie, and he used to make French press coffee. So we were very different habits, right? Obviously, while I was at office, he would go and sit at the nearby Starbucks and work from there. And gradually, he got me hooked to black coffee. We realized that, to have a good cup of coffee, we were inevitably stepping out and paying a bomb at a Starbucks or a CCD or a barista. And at home, he was one of the only people I knew who used a French press. And if you look at your hands, there's a very small consumer that actually brews fresh coffee. So we started Googling about coffee and the industry, and we discovered that cold brew as a concept, which is a method of brewing coffee in cold water, was becoming very popular around the globe. And that was it. We said, okay, let's bring it to India and let's figure it out. So, we took a one-way ticket to Chikmagalur, which I didn't know existed before I Googled it, and said, okay, let's go talk to coffee farmers, traders, understand the supply chain of coffee, understand how coffee works as an industry, because that is going to be the core raw material, irrespective of the end product that we make. And looking back, I think it was a tricky decision. We both quit our jobs, came back to Delhi from Bombay, and we started manufacturing cold brew in our house in Dwarka in the living room for the first 8 months, selling our product online because no retail store would have us, stock our products there. So we said, let's take the digital route. Let's sell our products to consumers online. We started with one SKU, and over the last 6 years now, I think we've survived first year of business. I believe there's a statistic that most businesses fail in their first year. So I guess we got past that. COVID came and went, and we got past that. So I think we're doing something right. And it's an exciting space to be in. And I'm happy to share more with you guys, in the panel discussion, and even after this, if you guys are keen on, learning more about F&B, FMCG, D2C to some extent, because we started as a D2C business today, but it's the smallest contributor to our revenue as we stand today, because there are marketplaces, quick commerce, offline channels where the consumer finds it more convenient to go and procure at least food and beverage products, right? And I think that's, as Anshul also mentioned, it's an omni-channel country. You can't depend on one channel, and you have to be where the consumer is. So happy to share those learnings with you guys. And if anyone plans after IIFT to again switch, come to me, we'll talk, and it'll be exciting to push you in another direction. Thank you.
So before I speak, I'd like to invite Aditya. Hey, so just come and introduce students, tell them a bit about your company, and then we'll start the panel discussion after that.
Yep. I'll use the word good afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. If it would have been a good morning, I would have started with how's the Josh. But in good afternoon, I always know the Josh is never there. So what to tell about me? As in, I cut checks for a living. That's the most boring job, right? But the interesting part is that how much, what amount of check to cut and who to give it, right? That's what keeps my day occupied. And of course, we are venture capitalists, VCs. We invest in early stage companies, in founders like the ones who have spoken before me, right? Who have inspiring stories and have a strategy of course, doing something for the world. And how did I get there? Well, that's a story even I tell myself every day and try to live with it. Because for me, as I'm still 25, and of course, being a part of a venture capital firm this time, and also now coming up with an early stage fund, it's something that I didn't aspire for when I joined Delhi University about 7 years back, right? Anyone of you here from Delhi University by any chance? Wow, a lot of you. So I joined, of course, Delhi University with an ambition that. So I joined Delhi University with an ambition that, of course, I will get a good percentage. That's the first requirement, right? Because if you don't have a good percentage, you can't join Delhi University, unfortunately, or in fact, any university for that matter. So got the first part sorted, which was, of course, getting a good percentage. Now the second part was to decide which career or which college do I need to select for myself. And right from of course, my 10th, 11th, I always had this knack around doing something for finance or startups. I even participated in the first ever RBI quiz that happened in class 9, class 10th, which was towards promotion of financial literacy. And then is where I got to know a lot of these terms which we studied in of course class 11th economics, which was a CRR, SLR, MCLR, and all these terms, right? And that made me very fascinated. Like when I was reading these terms, it made me very fascinated about what is the financial sort of system of this country and what is the economy as a whole. And that's when, of course, I studied hard for that quiz. In fact, won the district level as well and got to meet the RBI governor, then RBI governor, Mr. Raghuram Rajan. And that's when the interest in finance peaked to a larger extent, where I started reading about how did the global financial crisis happen, right? Things you learn at MBA, right? How did the credit default swaps happen, right? I used to study about these terms a lot. And that's when I piqued my interest that I will go to a college where finance is of course taught, but I can also learn a lot with my peers. And I started researching about colleges, and that's when I finalized on a college which I eventually ended up going was Shahid Sukhdev College. How many of you are from that college here? Yeah. So you do find a lot of people join IIFT from SSCBS, in fact, every colleges. So I went there, and the first thing I realized that that in business schools, of course, business is being talked about. I have my phone. So the moment I joined my college, I realized that studying business is one thing, right? But actually going on ground, getting that practical exposure for yourself is another, which I'm sure you would also realize. And that's when in the very first year of my college, I started to venture out for internships, which weren't mandatory. In the first year of college, internships weren't mandatory. So I started writing a lot of blogs around startup ecosystem. Back then, there used to be a blogging channel called Startup Delhi, which was very, very popular. Used to get almost 100K views a month for the articles. And for the startup community when it was in 2015, it was extremely picking up really, really well. So I started writing blogs, and that's when I figured out that startups are not just about finance or financial sheets, right? Which I have, of course, learned or I have always fascinated about. They're about the stories of people who have beaten the odds and are building something not just for themselves but the world. So in second year, I realized that now I've joined a business college, but that is just 20% of the work. Now I need to step out of this environment and get that practical exposure. But how should I get it, right? And that is when a resell in the college. So back then, the e-cell in our college organized an internship fair where they had a lot of early stage startups coming and picking up interns. And I got selected as one of the interns from this company called as FAR, right? And very, very small setup back then, hardly 3-4 months old post registration. We registered in June 2015, and I joined practically by the year end of 2015. So we were figuring out, trying to build everything we can for the startup community in India, right? So worked a lot with them, did a lot of blogging. Again, that is something that I liked. Did a lot of number crunching. So my love for numbers now resulted in sitting with startups and helping them prepare their financials and everything. Back then, a lot of my friends from Delhi University were also raising funds for their startups. So I used to help them in terms of getting them advisory or getting them prepare their numbers, or being, let's say, that friend, right, who always rejects every startup idea. So I was that friend with him. So to always speak them ki ye nahi hoga. And that's when I decided I can become a venture capitalist because essentially that is what you have to do. So of course that's when I started reading more about this industry, or that what is this industry, why Silicon Valley is like so celebrated. That's when I in fact watched Silicon Valley on as well. You have watched Silicon Valley, any of you? So that's when I watched Silicon Valley as well for the first time. So it grew my interest further, and I started reading a lot about these firms, that's Sequoia and Don Valentine, and how these companies came in existence, and what was the semiconductor era in US, which started the venture capital industry, and how is it picking up in India. So and that's when we went back with Fahad and discussed that we're doing a lot for the startup community. We are doing events. So by the time I was in college, I had hosted about 50 events in 7 different cities of India. And we had interviewed close to about 200 entrepreneurs. But there was something missing. We realized that if you have to help startups, you need to pick out a very specific need in which you want to solve that for. You can't go to a startup and say, I can provide you funding, I can provide you content, I can provide you go-to-market access, I can provide you, let's say, foreign trade, right? For example, you need to focus on one specific line of service on which you will help them. So that's when we figured out that let's build a network for entrepreneurs to connect with investors. Since we had hosted so many entrepreneurs and investors through our networks and forums, let's host them together on a common platform. And that's when, of course, we started doing pitching events. The first 1.5 years, it took us just about 5 deals to close. And we realized that this is a good strategy, but a very slow growth strategy. Because if you connect an investor with an entrepreneur, if you have to bring them to a common level, that marriage has to happen, right? You can even leave your girlfriend or boyfriend after a couple of years, but you can't leave your investor. You can't leave your co-founder, right? So that match has to happen. The timing has to match. You have to go through multiple meetings. And then at the end of the day, the value addition has to happen. Because if you can just give 10 rupees to a startup, nothing good will come out of it. But if you can help them to make that 10 into 100, then there is something for you and for the startup as well. So that's when we realized that we need to have skin in the game too. Because if I tell you that this is the best startup in the world, invest in, what would be your next question? The next question would be, have you invested? No. So how can you claim that this is the best startup in the world when you yourself don't have a skin in the game? So that's when we figured out that we'll reinvest, or we'll invest a portion of whatever we are earning for startups back in the company, and then slowly build our capital over time. We changed the model entirely. The year was 2018. Afterwards, my college got over, and then I joined Fahad full time. I had a very good offer, of course, from being in CBS, you get good offers. So I had a good offer from a very reputed online search agency, right? But I did not, of course, join it. So joined Fahad full time, and then we started building out this network. That what if, rather than chasing 10 different investors, I bring them to one single platform, that I don't have to chase them. And then if I'm investing some portion of my own capital, then it's a tad bit easier to convince these investors to put in capital. And that's when we started building out Fahad as Fahad Network, and it became a network of investors and entrepreneurs. And we started, and then COVID happened, luckily for us. And I use the word luckily because now location was not a constraint. Earlier, I had to chase investors in 10 different places and then try to figure out a time and bring them together at one place. But now COVID neutralized the advantage of a place. And then we started doing all our pitching sessions online. 20 investors joined in first, then 30, then 50, then till the time we were doing our 5th or 6th edition, about 100 investors joined us. Slowly and steadily, the network kept on going. In the last 2 years, since we have shifted to this model, we've invested in close to about 60 plus startups. And the entire wireframe has changed just because of that small tweak. We are a network of about 1,500 plus investors now. And all that has happened is just because of that small tweak or that small innovation and a bit of luck as well. I would not shy away in actually admiring the value of luck, because luck plays an important role in your journey. But yeah, this time was not very easy because of course things were not clear till a lot of time, and I of course came from a background where I had that job, right? I had a good package, but did not, of course, end up going towards. And of course, building this capital, convincing investors when you're still in college, right? That invest in startups, when it was not the popular asset class, which it is right now. It is a tough thing, but and of course, struggles. I've so much to the story, but I would just like to end with this. In fact, more will follow from the panel discussion as well. That uh, you are in this, of course, you are in the same age bracket. Your age never defines the kind of quality of work you can do. Always aspire to dream higher than your age. Because traditionally, if I would have thought that becoming a VC at 24 or 25 would not have made this happen, building this network from scratch. But then if you're limiting yourself to that very definition of age, the only person suffering from that definition is yourself, nobody else. So first is that. And second is be crystal clear in what you want to achieve from your life. Because everything then is a backtracked version of whatever you want to achieve. I was clear that I want to enter into the venture capital industry. I was studying finance. I could have, of course, the next step was to also prepare for, let's say, a CAT or an IIFT or of course, an XLRI, whatever colleges. But I was clear that I will enter into a venture capital industry. So I started studying about that. I started reading more and more around it. The companies that also came into the to campus for placement hiring, I then realized that which ones, of course, are near to what I want to achieve or which ones are something that I want to shun up. And the entire reading and the entire internships and the entire projects, life projects that I did in the 3 years were centered around that. So if you figure out that end goal, the journey becomes a tad bit easier. So yeah, that's pretty much about me. I look forward to interacting more with you. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? This is okay to mic. Okay, perfect. I think we're good to start the panel discussion now. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Great. I hope you like listening to that story. I was a bit, I told them, I said, please, let's not start the panel discussion, let them talk about the stories. Stories are always better, right? I think everybody loves to hear about stories. I'll give you a minute of mine. I've been back on campus. I'm 2013 IIFT. I was also sitting here and sleeping about 9 years back. And but today you seem very young and very impressive. And I was here in July for the internship. Good to be back again. Story has not changed obviously in 3 months, but I wanted to do this and wreck it after campus, got fired, and to the co-working space. And I was a good employee, I still believe so. And I took up a co-working space in Oakland, started a company, now we are 5,000 people. And we are bootstrap profitable, so different track from I think the last 4 5 years of entrepreneurship. That's been the story. Okay, but would love to speak to the panel. And we've got a fabulous mix of the panel, with people from all sort of backgrounds, right? And the theme is India at 100. The sub-theme, I really appreciated that. So May 2022, Mr. Piyush Goyal, who's also been Minister of IIFT as well at one point in time, tweeted that India now has 100 unicorn. And unicorn has been, we have somebody who's run a unicorn, found a unicorn for that matter, right? And I think the story sort of went in a different direction from there, right? Of course, there are two schools of thought about, whether being a unicorn, not being a unicorn, doesn't matter in the world. But what was interesting is that if you analyze that list, right, about 23 were e-commerce, of course, understandably, about 20 were fintechs, and about 17, 18 were like B2B SaaS sort of companies, right? But of course, I think all of us will also feel that as companies are evolving, D2C has come up like so big. I think for me, you were D2C before D2C was D2C, right? I mean, you sort of built an FMCG company, not maybe digital native in the beginning. But right, what I want to know from each of you, right, that where do the next 100 from unicorns come from, right? And probably it will happen in the next 20, 25 years. I would love to get a perspective on, where do you think this is coming from? More from your industry as well, like that you feel, and also maybe a bit of opinion on the unicorn guys, right? Like, we want to start with you also, right? So I think, so you run a P2P, C2C, I would say, C2C for sort of organization, C2C, right? D2C, right? D2C and now you're getting into the C2C commerce bit as well, right? So I think a bit different from, I would say, what existingly I would not assume that there will be a lot of unicorns in this space as of now, right? What is your opinion on, let's say, how do the next 100 unicorns, where do they come from? And where do you think C2C as a sector is something to watch out for in this space?
So completely, for us, inventory, we've been struggling with inventory.
Yeah.
So initially, it was own inventory, then we put Western there, it was like not very expensive inventory. When we entered the ethnic wear market, then we started the marketplace inventory, where the inventory owners are the designers. But then slowly, initially, of course, our first couple of years, the focus was just to build market, just to let people try rentals. And this was the complete focus. And just on the side note, we were spending 2,700 rupees in servicing one order, fetching us 300 rupees. The order value was 300 rupees, but the service was such, and we really had to break the barrier. So designers, and then we realized that when you really try to move towards profitability, that asset was like a business asset for the designer also and for us also. So we were literally fighting for margins, and we were not getting much there. But we were just like we needed the product, so we were sort of sacrificing on our profits. And realizing that every person who's got married or whose siblings got married has got an expensive piece of clothing, which is lying in the bed box as an NPA, and it's high time we need to get that out and use it. And also, this sort of broadened our sustainability narrative. That as a rental business, we really are proud to say we are a sustainable business. We've been shouting about sustainability since inception, but of course, post-COVID, such mindful consumption sort of concepts have creeped into everybody's mind. We know what we keep in the house, we want to keep the house clean, etc. And not keep hoarding stuff. So coming back to the C2C model, so this model we started in 2017. So since then, there plethora of garments come to us. Like our acceptance rate is just 7%. Because everybody thinks that whatever they have is valuable and they should just sort of give it out. But for us, it has to be, rentable asset.
Yeah.
So what happened post-COVID was any chance that a person gets any chance to make money, they don't want to let that go. So we get products as new as 4 days old. Like I got married 4 days ago, please take my now. So we are getting literally very interesting products. So we keep the product because it's obviously we have to service to the consumer. So it's not like it will be picked up from you and the other person will go back to you.
One question.
Yeah.
For the C2C model to succeed, I assume the supply side is also a big concern. Are you telling me that the supply side is now sort of opening up better post-COVID, or maybe you've seen a change there?
So quality of product, yes, but quantity, it's been enormous since the beginning.
Okay.
The quantity of products have been really, really great, but now I would not say quality, I would say newness, like the trends. Like this wedding season, what pastel color, etc. As a business fashion point of view, these things are going very well. So we are getting those products from the consumer. And
In the next 25 odd years, right? Are you hoping for a certain watershed moment that will push C2C in a certain direction? And do you feel that where this happens, could be anything? Consumer side, supply side, tech side, maybe 5G, I don't know for that matter. Do you think something can give this business a nudge or this industry a nudge that pushes it in the unicorn direction?
yeah, so huge. I feel that so the market is, of course, there will be buyers and vendors. Okay, so currently the model is that we're not, asking people who are already renting, they don't feel that they're going to come rent from Flywheel. Actually, people are buying, so we can try rental.
Yeah.
But the market is going to grow. The largest company, if I see for an ethnic system, Maneuver has become huge.
Yeah.
So there is no lot of people buying. There will be a section who will completely buy, there will be a section who will be renting, a section who is renting is growing. So again, we as a business, now we are taking advantage of both. You buy, buy. Buy, but then take the product first. So which means that it's huge. The market is huge. And then we also open to other countries. There's so many NRIs who buy expensive products from here. We can take products from them also. So I feel, and plus also revenue point of view. So C2C product is an expensive product. It's not, it's an expensive product, like a 1 lakh plus rupee lehenga, 5 lakh. I would say like maximum, the most expensive product that we have in house right now is about 14.5 lakhs. That we rent it for about, yeah. So that's the most expensive one. So imagine somebody who has a 14 lakh rupee lehenga and doesn't want to keep it anymore because of कुछ भी नहीं कर रहा है. So they want to probably more make money out of it. So imagine the kind of revenues we can do with the C2C inventory taking from our society. So I think that the revenue growth would be geometrical.
That's a fair perspective. I want to move to Nikhil, right? I have first let me brief. So of course everybody now knows what Nikhil does. So you work in 3 industries. Each of them have produced unicorns according to me, right? So there is content, you work on Hotstar, you did e-pharmacy, and now you do fintech. And you are running a listed firm, which means the kind of compliances and guardrails that you have are very different from anybody else sitting on the panel. Or any of us that have run the firms, right? So tell me something like from the stock exchange perspective, how is it been running a listed company, right? Post 2 companies where sort of this was not one of the ideas, right? Both were acquired or making investments. Secondly, what I also want to know is that from this side of things, right, where you were sort of enabling other companies and you were listed, right? Do you feel that unicorn valuations can see the light of the day of listings on stock exchanges, right? And is that probably the final goal of the next maybe 100 unicorns in India? I want to get your opinion on both of these.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, how is it like running a listed company? I would say as an entrepreneur, honestly, like it makes no difference to me personally, right? Because like I always run in a company thinking, for the next decade, next, 20, 30 years, right? Like that's how you think. I think there's a lot of noise because there will be a lot of shareholders who want to basically, get quick wins. Right? They want to do something, for that particular quarter so that, share prices go up, this and that, they make money. But, I think, you should just keep, the eye, long term, and then actually it makes no difference whether you're a private or a public company.
But does this quarter model sometimes, I don't know, take away the goal of this 30 years, 40 years sort of time? Entrepreneurs typically build to outlast themselves, right? And that's one of the concepts that mostly entrepreneurs sort of go through.
You're right. I mean, I think, this is where, as an entrepreneur, you have to choose, right? And I think the clear right choice is that, you have to build for the next decade, right? And see, the reality is this, right? Most smart investors actually think the same way, right? There will be a few bunch of retail investors who may think, differently, right? But I think if you speak to the right investors, they will tell you, build for the long term, right? So I think, ultimately what you should do in every company, right, is retain control, to be very honest, right? Like that's the most important thing. Like in board of invest, I have a 70% stake, essentially, right? So honestly, I couldn't care less what anybody else thinks. Because fundamentally, it's all about skin in the game, right? If you have the maximum skin in the game, you have the most say as well. And in this way, you retain 100% control. Right? So that's the first thing. I think the second question.
I'll just rephrase that. Yeah. I asked a bit of time. Specifically, actually, right? So unicorns, of course, you've seen 2 of them, 3 of them in your current sort of work. And you're running a listed company now. I have 2 specific questions on this, right? One is that unicorns getting listed, is that the right direction for these kind of organizations to go to? We've seen some successes, but we've also seen the Zomato, BTM, IPOs, I think the last 1.5 to 2 years. And for the next 100 unicorns to come in, right, is probably building from day one with an IPO in mind, is that probably the right direction? These 2 things are what we
I think honestly, the market will just mature, right? And I think if you think about India historically, right, I think people have very wrong expectations in terms of, looking at what happened in isolation to Paytm or Zomato or things like that. I think this is just, I think we should all celebrate, so one of the things I always, talk about is that, instead of us focusing, too much on the valuation number, too much on the stock number, I think all of us should basically, focus on studying more on what Paytm did right and what Zomato did right. Right? Like I think, there's a lot of obsession around, failures in startups. Right? Like if you see like, all the news channels, right, or all this stuff, right? They just want to talk about why something is unsuccessful, what scam is happening there. I mean, honestly, that is so misinformation. Right?
I think everybody here, would be better served in reading case studies of even, forget about tech companies, any company which has done well, read case studies about them, about what they did right and what they did wrong. Let valuation be something which honestly, investors like him worry about. Right? I think all of us should focus more on, learning skills which will help us, build valuable companies. And to answer your question about how I see how we should go about building companies, I think we should never go about building a company thinking you're trying to create a unicorn or I want to this. I think what you should try and build is just two things, right? One is focus on the customers. Make sure you build something that they really value, and the definition of value is that means they're paying you. Right? This is the only two things which matter. Everything else ends up becoming noise.
That's so true, and I think that's why entrepreneurs also find purpose, right? I mean, I can talk about myself, right? So when I started because I got fired and no plan to start up. I was very happy in my job, very paid, right? And when I started, I said, okay, I mean, maybe I can start up, right? Like maybe I can get like 10 jobs. I'm very privileged, my parents paid for my education, and I live in Greater Kalasa, not rich, but I live there. So some privilege from an outside perspective also. So I said, oh, maybe I should be. Then I started, first 10 jobs happened, 20 happened, 50 happened. I said, oh, wow, this is great. And then I started reading about that. I read that India needs about 1 million jobs every year for the next 50 years. So this can't happen. So if it's people like probably people sitting here and who come with a sort of kind of privilege or can save up money probably in the first 4 years of job, you can get and sort of build it. And that finding that purpose is very important. And I completely agree with the angle that media will write what you want to consume. So if you want to consume unicorns, they write about unicorns. If you want to consume failures, they want to do that, right? But I think where unicorns give validation or at least hope, right, is stories like Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Stories like when people sort of started from somewhere and they built a company which is now 7,000, 8,000 crore sort of valuation company, right? That is where I think they fuel the entrepreneurship sort of segment, right? What I get worried about, and this is where I want you to answer something also, is that this way of operation is so far away from, let's say, this public company sort of operation, right? Because we only see public company as a ticker on CNBC. Right? We don't know what it takes to literally run one kind of audit and the kind of compliance you have to run, right? How hard has it been, and is it like an impossible thing for startups to sort of even look at for first 10, 15 years of operation?
I would say two things, right? I think number one, there is, I think firstly running a public company is a privilege, right? Number one. And it's because, you have people, betting, and investing in you truly, and it's democratized in a way, right? Like, private investing is just not putting in money, it's about having access firstly. Right? I think that's most important. It's not about who has the money, it's about who has the access, right? Because that's when you get the right people. Over in the public market, everybody has access. Right? So it's a privilege also to the entrepreneurs who are getting access to this kind of funding. And also the pros of this ultimately, right, are the fact that both your investors and your team members have easy access to liquidity. Right? Which is not always the case in private companies, right? So I think there are a lot of pros of running actually a listed company, right? Now, in terms of the challenges, I think personally, I don't think so. I think again, what is being read into what is happening right now with Paytm and Zomato, right? Is people are looking at it microscopically over what happened in the last 3 to 4 years, right? But fundamentally, if you see what's happened is basically COVID, a lot of valuations skyrocketed, which is what happened with them as well. They got destroyed. And after COVID, a lot of companies basically they're talking about funding winter, right? And all of this is just seasons. Right? It's just seasons. Like the temperature goes cold, it goes warm. I think what entrepreneurs have to do, right? And I'm pretty confident if you talk to like a Vijay Shekhar Sharma, you talk to Deepinder Goel, they've been there, done that, they've built a company for 10 years. They're not sweating. Right? They're looking at it for the next 20 years, next 30 years. This is what they do in their life. This is all they know how to do. Whatever will happen, right? The Indian ecosystem will be better for it. Because what will happen is the next generation of companies, right? Probably they will see examples of this, learn from these lessons, and navigate the public markets better. Even the investors, for that matter, right? Whoever are investing into these companies, they will know what is the acceptance and not acceptance of these companies. And see, if you think about it, in the US also, there are a lot of companies which are listed and not making profits. It's very normal.
Of course. More mature, so they of course been used to that.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think So I think that's what is happening in the Indian ecosystem as well, right? We are learning a new way of, learning a new entity itself to invest in, right? So we have to give it time. I think, the US, from a maturity perspective, is at least 50 years ahead of us. So we have to start somewhere. There will be bumps and bruises on the way. But I think again, I think we should all focus on the positive aspect of it. Don't worry too much about this. I think let the ecosystem evolve, let it mature, let us all learn from the positive things. And I think in the next 10, 20 years, we look at these moments as truly iconic and historic moments, right? Where we had actually tech companies which were built by the startup ecosystem, which went on to being public listed companies. That itself is a monstrously amazing achievement for the Indian ecosystem. Right? We've not had that. I think before this, the only entities which were realistically available at scale to invest in from a public market perspective were like things like Infosys, Wipro, all this stuff. Right? So this is a change of guard. Right? I think give it time to mature. People sometimes get impatient. Right? This company's been around for 15 years. Yeah, it should be doing more. It's not so easy. Right? The Indian ecosystem is very young from a tech ecosystem perspective. It will take some time. Give it 10, 20 years. And let's just keep taking positive lessons from them along the way.
Yeah, one specific question on fintechs. Fintechs were, as I said, first 100 club, there were about 20 fintechs exactly, right? Who were part of the first 100 club. And as you mentioned that 90% of India is unbanked or not unbanked per se now, maybe they have access to some new banking sector, but they don't have access to capital, loans, and they have, unfortunately, they have access to very bad loan sharks and an entire money lender ecosystem. So fintech is bound to grow, that I understand. But do you also think that this 20% share of 100 unicorns, right, will that remain to be so in the next 100? Do you see a consolidation happening? Or within fintechs like lending and maybe buy now pay later sort of companies, right? Because I also feel in fintech there is so much role that regulators have to play. Like, in fact, I today don't know whether my credit card is saved, not saved, or supposed to be saved. I have no idea, right? Some of the apps disappear, some of it didn't, right? So how do you see the fintech share in terms of unicorns in the next 100, right? And what kind of role do you think the regulators should ideally play in fueling this ecosystem?
I think again there's a lot of confusion on RBI. Right? There's a lot of views that they get which I personally think they don't deserve. Right? Because I think if you look at all the rules that they come up with, right, in my opinion, they're all positive. Right? Because see, what the thing is, like let's talk about them, right? Like number one, this whole thing about the digital lending guidelines that they came out with, and the whole industry went like, oh my god, he died. That's not the truth. Actually, you see what they came out with. They came out with two like macro level, right? They came out with two very specific things. One is they want to safeguard the borrower, right? That you should not be getting exploited. There should be clarity on what that person is getting into. And number two thing is they want a lot of the regulated entities to take responsibility. So on the face of this is nothing wrong, right? In fact, my hope and aspiration is a lot of the rules which are being deployed by the way on digital lending today will be adopted by traditional lenders. Because in my opinion, a lot of the ambiguity and companies which are coming for digital lending, they are, I would say, 98% or 99% of the market is the traditional world, and where ambiguity and mis-selling of products is so common. So this will become a leading light to kill all of that stuff as well. Right.
Probably why the chatter is so sort of like. But so just one question. The regulator that means what according to you is in the right direction essentially in terms of fueling the ecosystem.
100%. I mean, let's think about it like again, 10,000 people overview, right? I mean, we're a country which is got so many amazing things happening. Right? We've got KYC happening, we've got Aadhaar happening, we've got UPI happening. I mean, again, I think difference between signal and noise, right? I think if you look at something very, very near term, short term, it will seem like a lot of bumps and bruises, so many changes. That of course there will be changes. Yeah? Like, I mean, we're talking to a regulator and expecting him to understand something which even people in the startup ecosystem don't understand. Right? So they definitely don't understand. The first thing that we're doing, right, is they're putting guardrails in place so that we talk about it, that the loan sharks, etc., those get weeded out. Right? So in fact, they are putting in rules into place so that the best players who are actually looking for the best interest of the customers, they actually have a very clear path to grow without somebody coming and putting obstacles in their way.
That's so true, right? I mean, the idea of these companies was to bank the unbanked, right? The regulator's idea is to sort of safeguard them. It is completely in the right direction. So So specific question, right? So these 20% share of the 100 unicorn, right? Do you think fintech will continue to hold that, go up, go down, or are there enough fintech sort of right now that are doing what is your view on that?
I think honestly, from a fintech perspective, I think India is, it's like a infant, right?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I would say, like in human terms, I think it's less than a year old, in my opinion, right? Like it's a child, it's an infant, it's a monster opportunity, right? And without being too biased, that's why I'm doing a poll, right? Because fundamentally, to me, I think one of the most common criticisms which are given to startups in India is that you're just copying the US, right? Or copying.
Oh yeah.
Right? I think in the financial services ecosystem, right? I think opposite is happening. The traditional ecosystem and the traditional lenders, right? They have actually copied the US model, where they are serving customers which are in the top 10%, having salaries of more than 20,000 a month as an example, right? The reality is 90% of India is excluded. Right? So fundamentally, if you look, and I'm a big believer, obviously, in the India story, right? 10 years from today, I like to believe that we'll be doing significantly better than we're doing today, right? So if we have to do this, right, fundamentally, what has to happen is that 90% of India today who is being excluded because they need access to, in the FMCG world, I think of call it, right? Like if you want to sell a shampoo, if you start selling shampoos for only 100 rupees a packet, they're going to sell very less, but if you sell shampoos for like 5 rupees, they'll be a 5. Right? So in India, that needs to be happening, but for financial services. And the only way this is going to happen is with digitization. Right? And if you look,
also education, of course, I think will be a big angle, right?
100%. See, in education, they'll be delivered by these fintech companies because they want customers. Right? If we look 50 years from today, we are going to look back at Aadhaar, we are going to be looking at CKYC, we are going to be looking at UPI as the building blocks for the future of India. Because financial services need to go to places where roads don't lead. Right? And thanks to Geo, right? I mean, this is now absolutely a reality. Right? So now what is going to happen, right? With clear rules given by the RBI, with all of this infrastructure kept in place by the government, right? Over the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see explosive growth. Because before all of these rules basically were clear and all this infrastructure was present, right? A lot of large companies actually refused to get into these spaces meaningfully. Right? Because if you're a Zomato and you want to fund your restaurants, you're not going to get into it very clearly because you're like, clarity and technology ready, right? But now it's ready. So you're going to see people like Uber, Amazon, Flipkart, Apple, Google, all of these guys have an absolute assault in the financial services space because the market is monstrously large and in every space, right from investments to credit, it is going to be it's going to be at the touch of your fingertips. And what's going to happen with this increased competition, basically, right, is it's going to mean that the traditional lenders have only two options: either provide amazing services to your end customers and make it friendly for them, reach out to larger audiences, or become the minority player. Or what's going to happen for them is they are just going to end up becoming infrastructure companies. Right? They are going to become companies which are faceless, whose face is somebody else. And at that point in time, it's very challenging because if somebody else becomes your face, right? Then the minute they acquire a license, right, and it's not far away in the next 10 years, I'm pretty confident that there are going to be digital banking licenses handed out because that's the precedent across the world. India will do it when it feels it's ready, but that will happen, and when that happens, all of these traditional vendors, right, will start losing customers left, right, and center. And it's going to be a big problem because, as a lot of Google products are shown to us, right, when you cater to the next billion customers, you actually end up creating experiences which the top customers also love. Right? So, what's going to end up happening in these situations is that these companies which will go after the mass audience will actually even end up attracting the top crowd. Right, which is the top 100 million customers in India. They'll also be like, oh my god, these services are so cool. Let me just use it. It's so user friendly as opposed to, I don't know, the website which HDFC has and which interns they deployed. Right, at this point in time. So, these are things which are just unacceptable. I think.
I love the 7 clicks way, right? Login to HDFC means 7 clicks. Anybody who uses HDFC Bank, please check out the website. We have because you are now your Face ID now. But I also use it. I'm also okay. But
The sad part is I just feel like, it's like literally, slapping a customer across the face. I think it's insulting, right? Frankly, like I think genuinely, I think it's an insult to all of us, including me as an HDFC customer right now, that they're treating us this way. It genuinely feels like it's dictatorship at this point in time, right? So this never lasts in a democracy. In a capitalistic world, this is the start of the problem.
Young companies will come and sort of, I'll move to Arman, right? And first of all, I think, how many of you drink Sleepy Owl coffee? Very cool. I am so happy to see, right? I think you're fabulous brand. And again, I am an FMCG guy, right? I've been on Goodrich and Decade and sold soap and all of that. And I saw Sleepy Owl coming out right in front when I started my sort of work in Delhi. We started 2015, 16, right? So, but I was Delhi SM for Decade and started seeing this brand in that's when the time was there, right? B2C, right? I think the elephant in the room. I think, of course, last 2 years I've been big on B2C. Then Shark Tank happened, so everybody started talking about B2C, right? How are you using the evolution in the last few years in FMCG specifically? And again, what is the future for digital natives? I don't call them B2C anymore. I think digital natives plan in the next few years, and do you also look at them having a lion's share in the next 100 years?
So I think when we started in 2016, for us going direct to consumer was a necessity, right? I think if you're starting an FMCG, especially FMCG food and beverage brand, right? Or I'd say even if I were to talk about personal care, etc., the chances of you walking into a retail store and trying to displace a P&G, Nestle, is not easy. So you take the other route, which is you go set up a website, you talk to your customer online, and especially if your products are targeting that age group that is online and spending time online, right? So we did take the digital route and we started selling directly to our consumers. And we did that, we've been doing that all through the last 6 years, and we continue to do that. But obviously, as I think there's a lot that's changed in the world around us with the Apple update, with privacy, with CACs going up and down and up and down. During COVID, it was a great, 8-9 months where advertising, the return on advertising spend was fantastic. So digital was really good at that point in time. But now, I guess post-COVID, post-Shark Tank, there are thousands of brands advertising online. It's again become expensive to acquire a customer there, right? So strategies keep changing. So that is why I don't look at B2C when going digitally native. I think as a young brand, catering to a young audience, we will always communicate with our customer largely digitally, right? Expecting our consumer to come in, or you guys should go and search for secret online first. You're not going to run to the store to find it. You're going to go online. You're going to probably Google it. You're going to go on our Instagram page. So those or Twitter for that matter, right? And we have to be active and exciting on these channels. Hence, digitally native, right? But where will we sell our products? Where will our business come from? Everywhere where our customer wants us, right? So that could be someone in B2C, offline, exports, Q-commerce, big one in the last 18 months. Didn't exist as an industry before this, but last 18 months, if I were to tell you Q-commerce is our largest contributor to our business, we'd be like, 18 months ago it didn't exist. So things are changing that quickly, right? If I were to tell you I order my own coffee on Blinkit and not my own website, it's the reality. Like I'll go back home and I'm like, okay, there's no coffee. More Blinkit, place an order in coffee 8 minutes. I don't even need to wait. If I have an order on my own website, it would get dispatched tomorrow, reach me the day after. That's completely crazy. Right? Why would I do that? I mean, it's like the HDFC thing, right? Like, everyone's looking for something slightly better, more convenient, right? And like habits are changing.
So these channels, like so e-commerce was building up. Quick commerce, of course, I run e-com service business. So I work with Haldiram is a brand that I manage. If you want to keep from Haldiram, that is our stream on that content, right? But is this Q-commerce sort of going to present the opportunity to building more companies in terms of the digital native brand? Is it opening up the larger ecosystem?
No, it's not actually. Unfortunately, that's the tricky bit, right? Like so they limit it at 2,000 or 3,000 SKUs, right? So it's an access problem. So I think there are certain brands who will get listed or so here's the catch-22 situation, right? Like if I were to advise someone who's building a brand today, you have to first figure out how to make yourself popular, sell on your own website, sell on Amazon, continue to build that excitement around your brand or product so that when you go to quick commerce, you're like, hey, I am selling, this is my audience, this is my traction,
Yeah.
I will do well on your platform, and then they'll take that risk to you, right?
I was at the office of one of the most successful digital native brands in the country last 3 years. I can't name them. And they told me that when we started up 2015, 16, 17, on that time, right, the big E's of FMCG, the 20, 30 companies, right, they were not putting the kind of money that they're putting now. And now they're saying it's almost impossible to set up a digital native brand in FMCG because the kind of ROAS numbers that you have now will not. I mean, it'll be cheaper to go to a physical store and sell them the product and tell them that I'm going to sell out from here and put a promoter in the store. That's how build up online. Like, what is your thought?
A bit of both, like you have to, I feel like you can't get away from, not setting up a website and at least having, the option for a customer if they do want to order from there, or at least come and check your catalog and your range out, or at least get it from your story, right? It's a great storytelling platform. So for us, another thing was, we chose to enter the common market with a category called cold brew, unheard of. So it's like, how do you educate your customer? My product on the shelf can only do so much, right? So our website becomes a place where you educate. Offline events, sampling, activations become so we go office to office, sampling the product, getting people to try it. So we spend the first 2.5 years really building the category and our brand and then that, initial spurt, we also did put promoters in stores. We stood as promoters in stores ourselves every weekend, right? To actually learn and then choose to educate, and it was very humbling and experience for us to do that. It's not easy to do offline retail either, though. You can't, there's a certain way it works with distributors and super stockists and so on and so forth, right? And ASMs and SOs and merchandisers, and you have to have that full infrastructure set up to be able to do offline well. But hey, how about, you say, okay, I'll get into 50 stores and I'll activate myself, learn what's working, what is the store, what areas, that's probably the slow, correct way to build a business. And I don't think anyone's answered the unicorn question, right? And I don't want to be not important, if you can build again, goes back to what is your founder's vision, where do you want to take the business, how do you grow it over the course of your journey, what is your larger purpose? Unicorn is an outcome, it's an outcome where people again decide, they want to.
I was waiting for
Recently read Adam Newman raised X and he's already unicorn before he has a product. So where is the product? Where is the service? Where is the customer? Where is all of those important pieces, right? So for me, that was the final. It's kind of arbitrary. But if you can build a business that you enjoy running, that your customers are happy with the product and service you're providing, and you're any size and hopefully taking money. Good enough, then that will come. You continue to do that long enough, like he said, 10, 15 years, continue to do that, and it'll be there. I think while there's so much chatter in the media about Zomato trading, I think all of us use their services and use them happily. And this is, we're lucky to live in a day and age where something like Zomato, Swiggy, etc. exists for us to use, right? So we should enjoy that, encourage that, and exactly what Nikhil said on, learn from their mistakes while the next 100 are being built.
So that's a question on digital native brands, right? I think they've of course come up, and FMCG has done very well for them. I think largely, we see a lot of, probably the most visible D2Cs are FMCG, right? But any other category you feel which will be big in the next 20 to 25 years from a digital native perspective or selling digital?
So, again, I think digital, so if I were to consider personal care, FMCG, I think that's the last one. Right? That's the one that's very killed it. I guess high gross margins, high AOVs, lot of repeat purchase. So that's the category that's worked well in FMCG. I think another thing that I'll clarify about digital native is that, we as a brand today, why we're digital native, even though maybe B2C is not big as a channel, which is our own website sales, but why we still digitally native is because we can't afford TV, outdoor advertising, etc. So where do you advertise? Where do you market, right? So you still go back to, online media to go and spend your marketing dollars. So hence digitally native, right? And you choose that as the first place to do that. I think, for D2C, I'd say fashion, apparel, jewelry, personal care, other categories where you possibly have higher AOVs to sustain higher CACs, higher customer acquisition costs. For food and beverage, it's more of basket purchases, right? Like I think what we're learning, the hard way actually, because we spent the first couple of years really focused on D2C, and they were like sort of working on a strategy where it's a better mix. Strictly because food and beverage is a grocery play, and hence customers would prefer, like I want to buy 5 things. Unlike the 5 different websites. In fact, that's kind of the problem with personal care today as well, right? And you want to buy, lip gloss, and eye cream and this and that, you probably go to Nike first, rather than go to 5 different websites directly and get 5 tracking numbers, get 5 people come to your door, get 20 SMSs, 40 emails. It's a hassle, So we build e-pharmacy as well, right? So I mean, it is.
So that's why I'm still doing very much, right? Because we are sort of helping these brands be in those stores and be in those marketplaces. What I get what you're saying. But I'll move forward. Then I to answer the second question first. Because I think, of course, you're closest to that ecosystem, right? 60 investments. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what kind of industries is it typically, or is it sector agnostic?
Great. So for us, we are a sector agnostic network. So we have invested heavily in companies like Smart, Battery Smart, within early investors. In companies where SaaS also plays a major role. So different industries within SaaS, we've invested in storage. Then we also, of course, believe that Bharat native brands, Bharat 2.0 is also in existence. So while you talk about tech-enabled startups, the play for brick and mortar startups is not there. So I also believe that. So we invested in companies like Clear Deco, which is solving for eyewear problem. So we've been first investor in that company. So it's spread across multiple geographies. We come in first as a first investor, or at max the second investor in the company.
How many pitches do you see in a month? Ballpark. Yourself, not your team. Yourself.
So team-wise, we just closed the books for the last quarter, and we valued it close to about 800 deals last quarter.
Okay.
800 deals last quarter, and on a week, I'm seeing about 5 to 7 pitches every quarter.
So I think because you've been doing this for some time, right? What has been the change in the last maybe year or so in terms of what kind of sectors are coming to you in terms of early stage investments? Because you do pre-seed, pre-series A, right? Which basically means that actually every investment is you're betting on the entrepreneur, but you are betting so much more than somebody who has financial numbers to buy that, right? What are the sectors that you are seeing which are coming up? Maybe something which is becoming very big. And secondly, from your current portfolio investments, right, in the next 20 years, some sectors that you see becoming really big.
Got it. So for us, the change that I have personally been seeing is there's a lot of new sectors that are opening up. Right, 5 years back, you would not even hear the word Web3. Now you get about 20 pitches in a week on Web3. Just that. Right. You not hear the word crypto, of course. You not hear the word creator economy. Right. But now you get almost 30 odd startups every week talking about solving for creator economy. I mean, there are fintech solutions now solving for creator economy. Providing a very specific tailor-made solutions for creators, for digital influencers, YouTube creators to manage their earnings. Right? That's also a very big segment in itself. So one is, of course, these macro sectors that have opened up, and then sub-themes within a sector that have opened up. So within SaaS, which is an evergreen industry, now we are investing in companies which are solving for the payment side of it. A faster checkout, right? Because that's also a very big problem in e-commerce websites. So within a macro sector, you're getting so many micro level problems that every startup is solving for. And that's a change. Entrepreneurs have become more intelligent and more smarter now. I'm sure all of them would agree. Because now you have certain level of playbooks in making of what has worked and what has not. Right? So investors have also become very smart in diligence of these companies. So it's a growing ecosystem. The metrics are, of course, on the face of it, it's all about the founder only. But on the hindsight of it, there is a lot that goes by value.
As a VC, very valued company, right? Is this question generally on your mind? Can this become a unicorn?
For us, even if it is not a unicorn, it would work because we would exit it before that. Right. So we don't have to wait it till a unicorn. That's a question that, let's say, a Series A or Series B VC entering has to work out for. For us, even if it goes to a Series B or Series B plus Series C stage, It gives us a good return. The question we are asking is that for the kind of risk we are taking, because we are at a very different ball game than let's say a Sequoia or a Matrix which would come at a series B. For us, the question is that is this entrepreneur ready to accept feedback? Because we are not just investing from one check, but a lot of LPs pool in together. So we don't want that we invest in a company where our LPs also don't feel comfortable. As contrary to LPs is the people who we take money from. So limited partners, right? So we take money from them and then we invest. We are general partners, so we invest in these companies.
Like all of us can pool in, let's say, 1 lakh each, give it to his company and they will give
Yeah. So, so for us, the question is that people who give us money, like, will they be, because they would also be involved with the companies as well, as compared to, let's say, a Series B, EC, because these are institutions, they will not be involved with the company. So, that B is in the next 5 years. We look at every investment from a measure of 5 years. That's how even in the legal terms it gets defined. So, in the next 5 years, what's the kind of return we are targeting? Firstly, we decide that. Then we do a backdrop analysis of the entire calculation of how much valuation we need to hit it to say that, right? Of course, valuation, we don't worry till that much, because if a company is doing well, valuation or the value of a company is just a negotiation between you and the founder. So if I tell you that this microphone that I'm holding is worth 200 rupees, right? There would be, let's say, 10% in the room who would buy that. Even if 90% disagree, I am able to sell this microphone to you, and that's what matters. So for us, we worry on that piece of whether this company, how much logic this company has to justify, and how much is the story that we have to make. So we look at it from that calculation.
So just one thing, right? So from the startup ecosystem perspective, right? Does this, I would say, conversation around 100 unicorns, the next 100 unicorns, does it fuel something? Do you think it's adding value, or is it sort of creating a veil in front of what it actually takes to build a company and sort of move the conversation towards value? I mean, what is the general opinion?
I think it's a mixed bag. So every Saturday we do investor calls for our startups. On every Saturday, sometimes I answer this question in a very positive light because the entire mood of the room is positive. Yes, we will not talk about valuation at all. We talk about value driven. Actually drives valuation. But at some point of time, I do realize that this is a financial investment, right? If you're investing in stock markets, you're looking for a return. If you're investing in mutual funds, you're looking for a return. So every investor, at the end of the day, no matter what, any number of things they can talk about value creation. If the startup is not giving them returns, then there is no value creation. There's no value creation, there is certainly no valuation. So we do have to realize that the next rounds of funding or the entire funding strategy of an entrepreneur is something that we are working with. Because founders sometimes become so engrossed in their business, as they should be. But sometimes they forget that there's a next round we planned as well. There's a certain milestone that they've got from VC that needs to be hit as well. Right? So we always say that there should be one entrepreneur who focuses on fundraising, because that's also a full-time exercise for me.
Also usually not raise funds is that we didn't have the time to sort of do that.
I can understand.
But now hopefully the next few years. Oh, but I'll go to the audience. First of all, like very, very basic question. How many of you want to be entrepreneurs? Genuinely, right? Oh, but how many of you been entrepreneurs? Last time I found, correct. Interesting. So we open the panel to questions from the audience. Feel free to ask us anything, including me. But I would prefer that we focus our time on the panelists and not the moderator. I'll be anyway back for being a entrepreneur. So just feel free to ask any question you can, and somebody will need to pass on the mic. Yes. Yeah.
So my question is, we have been talking about building startups and building companies. My question revolves around sustenance of the business. We see a startup comes to the market, suddenly 10 more startups will come, giving the same offer. They'll do the same thing. And at the same time, there are big giants who will also come and start offering the same thing that you are offering. So how do you sustain in that market? Once you have built a market, you have come up in the market with a disruptive idea, and then everybody is just copying you. So how do you sustain in the market?
I mean, all of us would have faced it, right? From our side. Who would you like to answer? I mean, why don't you pick a favorite bet? If all of us can answer, anybody's fine. I mean, maybe I'll read the question. I think so. From my perspective, personally, this is how India operates. I mean, the world operates. I mean, there's more number of people, obviously. Like if you launch a pen and people start writing it, there'll be 100 pens in the market next people, right? So, what differentiates the company? I mean, I can tell you, like, my idea is nothing new, unique, or even exciting for the matter. It's a very boring B2B services business. Executed well, good hustle, figure it works out for everybody. Secondly, the market is large enough. It sort of doesn't matter that how many players are there, because sometimes the market is just large. Right? Why don't you answer that? Because I think probably you'll be closest to seeing multiple pitches of the same product, same story coming again.
Look, I personally have seen that it's a validation also, because if a number of competitors enter into a space, that also foreign investors see there's a big enough opportunity to be grabbed. So we look at it sometimes from a positive segment. But at the end of the day, see competition, the question is, you always make it timestamp that we are looking at it from today. But the competition, or let's say if you are investing in any company, we are looking at it from a 5-year lens. So you can't stop competition from practically entering into the space for 5 years, right? Or 7 years, or for forever. So the actual modes that we talk about, the competitive difference, that needs to be worked upon by any entrepreneur. Even if, let's say, you are serving in the same market, for us that's not a concern if it's a big market. Because let's say if you're talking about financial services, that is a market that cannot just be catered by one player. You need to have multiple players who understand, who are catering to different risk profiles, who understand different problems, who have different distribution at hand, right? So we look at it from what's your play and what's your niche. If you have a well-defined niche, right, in no competition could practically come into that niche and dethrone you. If you're working towards that niche and you're staying true to your customers. But if you are working in the larger segment where you are saying that okay, this competition is coming in, would dethrone us tomorrow, then it gives us a negative signal that you are kind of very moved in away by macro trends, and you're not focusing on what your sector or your industry is telling you, what your customers are doing. That's what, in fact, has been my perspective.
Thank you so much for your question. Would you like to contribute? Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I would just say,
I'm curious to know your answer actually.
I think honestly, I would just say like 3 things, right? I think the first thing is generally, at least what I have seen, right? Like I think companies, competitors don't kill your company. You tend to commit suicide. Like most companies actually commit suicide than being killed. So I think just 2 things I think I always recommend is number 1, just be obsessive, be like focused on the customer. Right, make sure that you're really providing them with value, and then everything else will be fine. Because most other companies are not building for the customer. Like when you're building a company, it's like kind of like being like a monk, right? You have to be like absolutely laser focused on the end customer. What your competition is doing, what investors want, what all of this stuff is absolute noise. In fact, like one of the things he said at the back room, which is absolutely right. Sometimes you have to ignore what you also want, right? Because what you want and you're building is sometimes not what your end customer wants, right? And this is a huge, that's why being an entrepreneur is kind of like being a monk. And the third most important thing I would just say is that, essentially, when you're on this journey, right, I think make sure that, you don't basically get distracted with any of the stuff, right? Because, you may be sometimes as a big company which is coming and building the same thing, but actually, what is the reality of the story, right? Like I'll give you an example. Like there's a common question which people ask, right? Every investor asks this question: what do you do if Google builds this, right? And the answer is nothing, right? Because the reality is there are 5 people building it there, and there are 5 people building it here. It's not like Google is deploying all its 50,000 people to build this one service, right? And one of the very big advantages that startups have as compared to like very big companies, right, is that big companies can't focus on niche problems. Right, you're not going to have Apple come and like solve like some very specific niche thing. Right, Apple will have to solve it for millions of users day 0. That's a huge disadvantage, by the way. As a startup, you can actually build something for 10 users also. Make sure that those 10 users absolutely love you, and then slowly expand. Right, find 10 users. If you build it for 10 users, find another 10 users similar to these 10 users, and slowly organically keep growing. And your audience base that you build will be like people will be your avid fans, right? Instead of like something like Apple or Google, you will have to build a very a shallow service, right? As a startup, you can actually build something very deep. So these are just few things you can think about when it comes to competition.
What Nikhil just said literally happened with us, like initial rounds of investment. Our investors used to ask us, what if tomorrow Amazon wants to start rentals? We'll be nowhere. So, and ultimately what really happened, because obviously it's a new space, we mastered it. We operationally marrying a rental business with technology, it took us a lot of years other than the dollars. So literally one of the really large retail menswear players, they wanted to understand how rentals work. They called me. They called us because there is no dearth of money. They can spend the money, but they don't want to spend that 3-4 years of learning, failing, and then redoing. So literally, you need to just focus on what you're doing and do it the best, and people would want to learn from you. Then.
I think there's just one more thing. I think Nikhil had covered a lot of the customer session and how you get to the customer. But I think we're all forgetting one of the most important pieces that I think is brand, right? How do you get brand love, brand loyalty, right? Like how do you get someone to go on Amazon and type sleepy out and not just coffee, right? When you type in coffee, you throw 100 different options at you. But how do you get someone to go there and put sleepy out as the brand name, right? So I think if you are and to have brand love, it is a consequence of how you treat your customers, how the quality of your products and services, how you make them feel emotional, right? If it's transactional, then there will be hundreds of brands doing transactions with hundreds of customers. How do you make it relational? How do you build that one-to-one with your customer? I think that is a big play that can help you differentiate from competition, right?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the
Great question.
Yeah, great question actually.
I think it is the reality of what it is today, right? Like, I mean, I can stand here as many times as I may say we're the first cold brew coffee company in the country. Today there are 50, right? And across categories, right? Especially post-COVID is just blown up, right? And I think we're also at fault for that, right? We built something in the first 2 or 3 years that seemed somewhat successful from the outside, and everybody said, "हम भी करेंगे." आजा वहाँ साथ में मत दे, it's like, yeah.
Well, I completely agree. That's what I tell you about my story. I had no idea I already had competitors in the market. When I made that 10 slides PPT, I didn't know that there are mobile companies already doing this. But you executed okay, probably as a laser focus. I completely agree, right? Forget about everything else. 2-4 साल के waste होंगे ना नहीं चला तो कोई बात नहीं. It's worth that short. Okay, I think we're out of time. I think I'll hand over to the E-side back, right? We can have a slide.
One more question.
Yeah. No, we'll do one more question. I think then we'll stop. Yeah. Okay, we go there. Yes. Yes, you will say. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Bhumika Mohan from the Batch 24. My question is to Arman sir. I am a big fan of how Sleepy Owl has been able to differentiate itself whenever I'm in a 24/7 or a new shop out at night trying to find a coffee. Even if I'm not looking at it, the brand, the logo, the name, the colors, everything sets itself apart in such a way that you're you're going to pick up the bottle and check it out. What is a new age marketer look like to you, and how do you find all these people and collect them at one place and are able to rightly tell them what do you want year after year, even as you evolve with time? And so what I like may not be the same thing that my mother would like. So are you able to tap us rightly?
Thank you. I think so I'm not a marketing branding person. I handle operations, customer experience. My co-founder from day one has been, I can't draw a straight line with the ruler. He looks at everything digital, and he has from day one had a very clear picture of who we want to talk to, right? And what kind of a voice the brand must have, and how a brand must again make a person feel emotionally, right? So everything stems from that. So the look, the feel, the colors, the name, the fun that we do. We felt that the category as you see it today, or as your parents have seen it,
is a certain way. It's brown and boring and drab and the same thing. We want to add some masala to it and make it fresh and exciting. So every decision is taken from that perspective, and that's a guardrail we don't break, at all. And the other thing you asked was about team, and I think since I kept Nikhil for one more question, I can add to this as well because he's built large teams in his career. We're cautious and we, are careful about the vibe of the people that we choose to get into the flow of the work that we do. Especially in marketing, branding, and design, it's a very very high bar that my co-founder has set. But ultimately, I think whether you're fighting competition, whether you're doing good work that is appreciated, it is a function not of what I'm here chilling with you guys. There's work happening in the office, right? So it is people who build large or good organizations, and I think that's another topic on culture, team building, more. Anything to add on team? Since I get here. I mean, team is, so I would just say, few things, right? I think, the easiest way to build great teams in general, right? I think number one thing is whenever you hire certain people, right? I think out of, 10 people that you hire, you easily identify that, people who are like 3-4 of them who are like absolute rock stars. What you should be doing, right, essentially in a great company is making sure they continue being in your company. So you give them an environment where they are growing, both honestly financially and as well as from a professional standpoint in their learnings. And the second most important thing you really do, right, is empower them to essentially go out and hire people like them, right? So every smart person, whoever you hire, right, will always have other smart people that they know, right? So one of the quick tricks that we've always deployed in all companies, whether it is Hotstar, Pharmacy, and Photo, is that the best people, we actually tell them to write down 5 of the best people that they know and they would want to work with, right? And we do whatever it takes to hire them, essentially, right? So that's one big thing. I think second thing, which is very I found this in a lot of companies, which is I would say underbaked a bit, is honestly the interview process, right? A lot of the companies, at least I have observed, that the interview process is more of a vibe check, right? It's more like it's like just a conversation, and usko hire kar lete, dekhte kya hota hai. I absolutely despise that. I think what you should be doing is setting up A+ recruitment process, which is watertight, right? Like as as an example, I personally spend almost 20 to 30% of my time in my company in hiring, and by doing just 2 things, right? One is every single interview, above a certain level, I will definitely be taking the last interview. That's point number 1. But most importantly, even I'm actually not important in the process, but the process is very important, right? So actually setting up, what are the kind of questions which are going to be asked? What is the interview process like, basically, right? What every company must guard against is basically getting in the wrong hires inside the company, right? And despite this becoming so obvious, I have not seen across multiple companies that I've interacted with, very limited time has gone into this, right? Usually it's just hand it off to the manager, hand it off to the HR, you figure it out, you source, you hire, you figure out the interview line questions, and every department is following some arbitrary process. And that leads to so much pain, right? Because hiring is a huge difficult process. You get that person in, you negotiate, you do everything, that person will come in, and within a matter of a month, you realize this person is a drug, right? So you must guard against that. And there are companies in the world which are doing a great job at this, right? There is a reason why, companies like Google and Apple, they have such an amazing interviewing process, right? And I always actually tell people this, right? You should just apply to Google or an Apple just to see their interview process. Like, don't want to work there, don't work there, but see their interview process. This absolutely prevents any negative hires coming in, right? So just few of these things, if you combine together, I think you'll be in good shape.
I really appreciate that. It's so great. Perfect. So I think we'll stop here. I hand over to the East and to the closing notes, and then we can wrap up. Thank you so much, everybody. You've been very patient and amazing.
So I would like to thank all the panelists for giving us insights about how C2C works and the challenges that are faced by NBFC listed companies and how the markets has matured eventually, and we'll see a light in Indian market as well, catching up with US, and how digital native companies will be the highlight of upcoming unicorns in the next 25 years probably, and VC's perspective about how the emerging industries like Web 3.0 and crypto based will take in charge, and the startups are more about are more than valuations. It is about the next big idea and value creation. So now I would like to go ahead with the felicitation of panel as a gesture of appreciation for taking out their time from their busy schedules and be part of the summit. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Hope to be back again. Thank you so much.
Now the guests can proceed for refreshments to Sanjeev.
Sure. Yeah. Like 6, right? Yes.